in this desire that we all have to reconnect to one another. So this topic is really to unpack a little bit about what it's like to be, like, why would people want to join a men's group? Why that becomes such a fundamental, key, and important part of their life.
The ceremony, that sweat lodge ceremony, rekindled a flame inside me about who I was. And the men who were leading that sweat lodge became my partners over time because they allowed me to be myself, to be broken, to be on a journey of healing, to find love again for myself.
Obviously, through the kind of work that you did in the sweat lodge and elsewhere, you get to reconnect to other human beings, other people that can relate to some of those wounds, can help guide us through that process of healing some of those wounds.
And because there was a fire in my belly and there was a way of accepting, being accepted and being able to give back. And I think those components are what happens in men's groups. For me, what got ignited was a sense of acceptance at a very deep level. And I began to believe in myself again. They just knock on the door. If you're really hungry, you'll find a way to get in.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Health Sovereignty Podcast. I'm Dr. Dave Tusek and your host. And I'm here with my good friend and Cloud member, Keith Fairmont. Keith, welcome.
Thank you.
It's great to have you on. And we're going to be talking about such an important part of, I think, our health journey in general as we become whole humans, which is in this desire that we all have to reconnect to one another. So to just quickly frame our worldview on what it means to be healthy, what it means to heal, what it means to be whole human. We believe at Cloud Medical that we're in this process, on this life journey of reconnecting to four main things that we tend to get disconnected from. The first one is our body. The second one is our selfhood, our sense of I amness. The third is one another. And the fourth is nature. So today we'll be mainly talking about the third quadrant of reconnecting to other human beings. And it's wonderful to have this dialogue with you because of your expertise and your experience with running and participating and cultivating and developing men's groups for over 30 years. And I just wanted to kick us off by saying that when I ask someone for a really deep grounding question, like, what are the most important things in your life? So many people say, well, my family is the most important, or my faith, my religion is the most important thing. And the very next thing that many people say is my woman's group or my men's group ranks almost as high, if not at the same level of these things for those people that participate in these kinds of groups. So this topic is really to unpack a little bit about what it's like to be, like, why would people want to join a men's group and why that becomes such a fundamental, key, and important part of their lives. So thanks again for being on, and maybe you can give our audience just a quick overview of your arc of experience in these wonderful containers.
Well, I really appreciate being here, and I really loved your 4 points. And I think in the beginning, 30 some odd years ago, I'll just tell you, I went through a life change, and I was going through a divorce, and I lost myself, and I was looking to find myself, but there was an emptiness inside me. And I began to discover through a need that I had. And that need was to find myself. And I came across a little tiny ad in a magazine. And all it said was, Sweat Lodge. Be here. Gave the address at 5 o'clock and bring a towel. And I went. And the reason I'm saying this is because we did include nature.
Mm.
And the ceremony, that sweat lodge ceremony, rekindled a flame inside me
Mm.
about who I was. And the men who were leading that sweat lodge became my partners over time because they allowed me to be myself, to be broken, to be on a journey of healing, to find love again for myself and for others. And that was the beginning seed for me of my journey 30 some odd years ago.
Mm.
And I think this quote that I really love so much is, out of our deepest wounds can come our greatest gifts.
Yes.
And to me, not everyone comes to men's groups and so on because they're broken, but oftentimes there is a link to wanting something different, wanting something new, wanting something restored in ourselves, no matter how old we might be.
Yeah, it speaks to, it's a beautiful reconnection on all four of those quadrants, right? Because certainly if you go into a sweat lodge, you're going to be deeply reacquainted to your body.
Right. Exactly.
Through the heat and the sweat and the breath work that oftentimes is included. And you're going to meet various components of your interiors. Mm-hmm. And we oftentimes talk about, well, we have these three main layers. We have our basic conscious state, our ordinary way of being. We have our ability to connect to our divine states of consciousness, or super conscious states. And we also have the ability to connect to our shadow, our darkness, the wounds that you're referring to, the traumas, the triggers. And those are in the realm of the subconscious, the shadow states. And then obviously through the kind of work that you did in the sweat lodge and elsewhere, you get to reconnect to other human beings, other people that can relate to some of those wounds, can help guide us through that process of healing some of those wounds. And I love that also included the connection to nature. So speak more about what that was like and the specifics of what it rekindled within you.
So I'll just say this, that I went on to lead sweat lodges with these other men for 5 years, every month. And because there was a fire in my belly and there was a way of being accepted and being able to give back. And I think those components are what happens in men's groups, women's groups, but today we're here to talk about men's groups.
Yes.
And so those, for me, what got ignited was a sense of acceptance at a very deep level. And I began to believe in myself again. Mm. And I got to learn more about who I am by being accepted into a circle of men, by a circle of men, without the judgments, it was just, they were there to listen.
Yeah.
And I was there to listen to them without trying to have a hierarchy. We weren't here to compete.
Yeah.
We weren't here to judge. We were here to listen and to go deeper into into our stories of our selfhood. And oftentimes we wear masks to prevent us from actually doing that, right? And so in that container, not just of the sweat lodge, but the group of men who were making those offerings were in a group already that I got asked to be. Just knock on the door. If you're really hungry, you'll find a way to get in. That's what I've discovered over many years, which led me to starting men's groups for others over the course of.
Yeah, what comes up for me as you're talking, Keith, is in general, we are one of the most isolated, alienated, lonely societies of any recent memory, maybe ever. I don't know. It just seems that in today's day and age, there are more people that are craving human connection than ever before. And that means that there's a lack of access to even friendships where you would sit down with a group of buddies, maybe in a bar or at somebody's house, have a few pints, and just kind of talk about what life is like and shoot the breeze and connect on that level. But there's something about these containers,
Mm.
these men's groups and women's groups containers that go beyond even that level of human connection. And there's almost a precise intentionality around the way that we interact. Speak more about how like a men's group container is different than a normal group of guys getting together.
So the men's groups that I've helped start, we're not there to be each other's best friends. We're not going to go out. We don't need to go out to the bars and go drinking. Our purpose is very different. It's more having a personal board of directors about your life. We're there to really be honest and truthful in a container where there's confidentiality. I think confidentiality builds safety. It allows me to speak my truth to people who maybe in the beginning are just willing to listen without putting their own filters on it. Right? And from there's a depth of understanding that gets shared, perspectives that get shared that perhaps we don't know about beforehand. It's like I get to learn about myself. Over time, we're exposing parts of ourselves to one another. And at the same time, the shadow does come along. It comes with the party, right?
Absolutely.
And over time, we get to see what those shadows are, and we get to acknowledge them in one another and in ourselves in a kind, loving way, because we're not going to make progress, I believe, if we're just tackling the shadow by trying to force, right? I feel like the shadow becomes, it's like a quiver it's there to help us. If we can just learn how to take it out of the pouch in the back and bring it into the light, take it from the dark and bring it into the light. And that's what happens, I believe, in these men's groups is we see things that we've never seen about ourselves before. And because other people have experiences that we haven't had, we get to learn about how to try on different things. And maybe once upon a time, as a kid, I wanted to be a musician. But in my family situation, I was never really allowed. We didn't have the money, et cetera, to have pianos and whatever it was, the pianos in my case, that I really wanted to study. But over time, I forgot about that. Just went on to do sports and other things. But 30 years later, in a men's group, somebody was talking about music. And I realized, I miss that. I love that. I have that inside me. It's a gift. Yeah. And I became like a lover of music again, right? But it was just hidden. It was just hidden from my life. And so it got brought back out again. And so we get to learn over time who we really are, or how big we really are. When you were talking about that sense of the divine, that sense of greatness, it's like in a men's group, we get to play all out.
Both the divine and the shadow.
And the shadow. We get to play both all out.
Yeah.
If we're willing.
Yeah. Keith, how often in your experience, it's fascinating, do you find yourself, if you're a participant in a men's group or observing others, like what comes out of your mouth is a surprise to you?
Yeah, actually quite often. Because we drop into a place of connection that we don't have all the time. So when I've had my current men's group, if you were to come into this group, and let's say the very beginning of our time, we are in silence. Maybe sometimes we're holding hands. We're connected in some way, right? And you start to feel an energy between us in the silence that wasn't there 10 minutes ago. And so maybe we sit in silence for 5-10 minutes, and then maybe there's a question that's asked. And then maybe we'll sit again for another couple of minutes thinking about that question. And all of a sudden, something totally different shows up, what the mind would want to say, because the heart begins to open. Or maybe it's through a piece of music that we might listen to, or a movement that might be happening. There's some men in our group who are very body centered, and maybe they'll take us on a journey through movement. And all of a sudden you're like, I'm doing stuff that I never did before. It's not always about words. It's just that, oh, I'm feeling my body in a way that I never felt before. I'm connected.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So these moments happen because we're willing to open our hearts to one another.
Yeah. And how rare is that, especially in this culture, to have a space or a forum or a container for that level of connection? It just doesn't seem to happen randomly or spontaneously in other settings, really, in my experience. So you mentioned some of the unique formats that you employ in your particular men's group. Can you maybe sketch out what would be the typical containers that, or the typical attributes that most men's groups and women's groups settings share? What's the structure that they have in common?
So usually there's some grounding exercise in the beginning. Maybe it's just being silent, right? And then there's, after the silence, maybe there's a check-in. So oftentimes there's a check-in, which could be a couple of minutes, it could be 5 minutes, where you're just listened to. And that in itself is rare.
Yeah.
How often do we get to just be listened to without somebody already figuring out what they want to say, what their answer is as to what you're supposed to do? But no comment. Just listen to me. This is what's happening in my life. This is what I'm loving. This is what I'm struggling with. The whole gamut, the whole range. And then it goes from there to perhaps a sense within the group, what needs to happen next? Maybe you need maybe someone needs a little more time. So there might be a little break after that. And then if there's facilitators for that particular, oftentimes there's some sort of leadership person, or in my case, there's usually 2 people just to bounce things back and forth. And so the group is led a little bit. And so they'll say something to the effect of, hey, Dr. T, would you like to share more about whatever it is? And it'll go from there. So then it will expand maybe about an individual, or maybe there's a theme that came out of the check-in. And so then we'll deepen into that theme. Sometimes well, I would say probably at least half the time, there's thought that's gone into what the night or the day what the meeting could become. And so maybe we'll focus on, Thanksgiving's coming up here, so maybe we would focus on that theme for a period, and people could share more about what they're really grateful for, or about the shadow of gratitude that comes along at this time of year, right? We speak about it as if everybody is grateful, and then we start to feel all the shadows, all the difficulties that come at Thanksgiving with family dynamic and isolation, and suicide rates go up and all that comes along. And so maybe we acknowledge that. Yeah. And we look oftentimes in our own family systems and what we struggle with. So what seemed like a theme of simplicity becomes an expression of truth being shared, of the challenges and difficulties that we share at this time of year too.
Yeah. So the fullness of expression of all of the different themes that come up. And also you keep pointing to this idea of a deep sense of vulnerability, the ability to share from your heart, your deep sense of vulnerability that, again, is really hard to find a place to do for most people, right? And it's even different. It's got a very different flavor or tenor than what you would do during psychotherapy or counseling, or if you're doing one-on-one coaching. Tease that apart for us a little bit.
Yeah. So I also just want to say that the end of these groups is a closing. Right. And so what that closing is, it allows us to feel connected again, and to feel safe again, and to feel expanded. We've spent an evening or a period of time, a few hours together, expanding our consciousness about one another or about a theme in our lives. And so there's a closure. And maybe then there's some silence, and maybe it's like a one-word checkout or a sentence, something you've learned, and then oftentimes I'm always suggesting in these groups, what worked for you and what didn't work for you
during that group, during that session.
during that session. Maybe you make note of it and you bring it back to for the next time. But to be aware, we're here to show up 100%, to bring our A game. And so for me, did I bring my A game today? Am I showing up here 100%, full out or not? And so it's a good time just to reflect. If not, why not? Yeah. So you asked me to tease something out. I forgot where I was.
Just how this might be different in the group setting compared to the types of things that might come up in a one-to-one counseling or psychotherapy session.
Yeah. This is not they're not a therapy session, for sure. And although sometimes there are a lot of therapists in men's groups, but the purpose is not to do therapy. But the purpose, in my opinion, is to pay attention to the greater whole of what's happening between us, to share connection, to build community, to raise the bar in trusting one another, to explore more of who we are, right? And it can get very specific. You talked about being vulnerable. So sometimes, if I think about also the men's groups that I've helped start, there's the youth, then there's the midlife, then there's the elders. And they're all different. They're all different. Testosterone levels are really different, right? And so I believe that in the arc of men's groups, one of my things that I'm trying to do, what I'm doing right now, is creating a multi-generational men's group with men 30 to men 75, 80 years old, to be together and to learn and to see if we can be successful in really being there 100%, showing up for one another, so that young man, new father, to someone whose wife is ill in their 80s and the struggles with that and everything in between. Can we really be there for one another? Not to do therapy, but from a standpoint of giving our gifts and talents to each other.
I love this. I want to just pull more on this thread of bringing the A game, really showing up for one another. Speak more about, for someone that's new to this practice, they're thinking about joining a men's group and they're thinking about what type of mindset or what type of preparation heading into that setting would they want to really feel like I'm bringing my A game? What would some of the things that they should be thinking about look like?
Yeah, maybe it'd be good. I have here some guidelines for running this men's group.
Please.
I'll respect confidentiality. I'll be present in the moment. I will stay around when times get tough. And that just doesn't mean physically. So if you're thinking about joining a men's group, think about this, that sometimes other people make us uncomfortable. That's how we grow. And so are we willing to just allow ourselves to stay seated long enough and to let our bodies, minds, and hearts be uncomfortable in those tough times? Be on time and stay until the end. To me, running men's groups, oftentimes somebody's got to leave and come early. The best is to show up on time and stay until the end.
Yeah.
Right? I'll speak my truth. I'll ask for what I want. I'll take care of myself. I'm willing to make mistakes. I'm willing to laugh at myself. I'm willing to own my own feelings. I'll own my judgments. I will not blame or shame or fix others, and I'll ask permission before offering advice. To me, these are the crucible of what makes a safe container, right? And we work within that context. So when you show up, we're ready to start. And of course, the group ends up with a personality of its own, where it's not, we have fun too.
Yeah.
Our men's groups, we go on retreats, we do things, and some of those men might become my close friends.
Yeah.
And some are just there brothers supporting one another in
Mm-hmm.
our lives. Right? That we would do anything for each other. But there is sometimes these deep connections made because the container is so strong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do go on different kinds of retreats from time to time. It's really helpful to go and not just have a 2 hour or 3 hour meeting, but to go and have a day or two or a week together to deepen the connection between one another. Yeah.
There's a lot of muscles that are being flexed
Yes.
in this list that you read that for many of us are quite atrophied. They don't really get a lot of training, right? This whole idea of active listening, like deep, profound listening, is something that I continue to work on cultivating, to really be present and to receive others. Is that something that you feel that you've cultivated and developed over the years? And talk about that, this idea of being really present.
I think for sure I've had to exercise these muscles, and I'm aware that sometimes I fail badly and I don't judge myself. I'm doing the best I can. And when I'm preoccupied with something else, whatever, it's hard to really show up. But the difference for me is I can say, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
Right? I'm struggling, but I'm showing up here just as I am.
Yes.
And I'm probably not going to listen fully.
Yeah.
Just because of what I'm dealing with. And so there's something about that authenticity,
yes,
right? That just allows us to relax.
Yeah.
I don't have to try so hard to be me. I can just tell you what's going on.
I love it.
And to me, that is what makes it feel like a community. That's what makes it feel like family. That's what makes it feel so special.
Yeah.
Right? Makes it feel like, wow, yeah, Keith's really struggling today or whatever, and he's preoccupied with whatever's on his plate. Somebody might say, hey, do you need any support? Like, where do you get that in the world? Support? Can I admit that I need support? And can I say yes? I think in the very beginning of when I went to that sweat lodge, I'll never forget. I was a needy bastard kid, struggling. I was going through a divorce, this, that, and I just was needing help. And these two men said to me, not at the sweat lodge, but a couple of days later, they said, you do need something. And you can just come and talk to us anytime you need anything. And I was like, nobody said that to me before. Right?
Wow. Yeah.
Right. Really? Really? I could be a needy guy and be okay about that? Because at times in your lives, we do need things. We're going through transitions all the time.
Yeah.
Right. And so how do we support each other? That's what happens in that men's group is you find resources that you didn't know you had.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the most profound tools, I think, for us on this healing journey writ large that we're all on, we're all part of, we're all doing it, is, and you pointed to it beautifully, is this idea of recognizing, acknowledging, and then accepting what is. I am having this feeling of anger or guilt or shame. And our tendency, and this, I can relate to this so much, our tendency often is, I shouldn't be feeling this. I shouldn't be angry. I shouldn't be ashamed. I shouldn't feel guilty. And to give permission to allowing to arise naturally, whatever is arising within us, to just name it, to call it out. And then the amazing gift, right, and the blessing that you're pointing to of being able to say it out loud in the presence of others that can hold you and say, it's okay, brother, out with it. And then to maybe get some beautiful feedback or reflection about how to best contend and manage that. But always having that radical truth and ownership that you're speaking to. What a gift.
And I think it takes time to feel safe. It takes time to be able to express our fears and to see all this as allies.
Yeah.
Right. And I wanted to say, like you were asking about the therapy.
Yeah.
I think it's therapeutic. It's just we're just not there to do therapy on somebody, but the therapeutic field happens.
Yes.
Right. Because we're so open to something to happen. Like, I think when I go to my men's groups, most of the time, I'm hoping that I'm going to leave with something more than what I arrived with, some new understanding about myself or someone else in the group, what was at play. And that is what inspires me to keep going back, right? Yeah.
So you mentioned the original Sweat Lodge,
Yeah.
and then now you've been part of your own personal men's group for something like 13 years. What have you learned over the arc of that time that makes men's groups successful, particularly potent, particularly meaningful, that we haven't really covered yet?
You know, being willing to explore the unknown. I feel like it just shows up. I think that, like, when we gather, I'm going to pause for a second. I just want to answer this.
Yeah, please.
So when I listen to my brothers in the room, I'm always asking myself of what's being said and what's not being said. And just trying to explore that. I could take it at face value, and I can also perceive that the unspoken, right? And I often feel like the unspoken, that invisible mechanism, it sometimes just requires an invitation.
So there's an intelligence in the room that's arising from the group setting. It's a collective intelligence. It's a field.
Yeah.
And you're tuning into that and trying to give it a voice that hasn't yet been shared or spoken.
Right. And when it shows up, it's magical.
Yeah.
And everyone learns something from that. And it doesn't always happen. And I think just being brothers is sometimes just good enough, right? I'm not looking every time I go to my meetings or to gatherings that I'm not looking for something profound. I'm just looking for us to show up, right? I'm wanting to show up. I would say 95% of the time, I walk away just feeling so much love in my heart for each other.
Yeah.
And we are all on a similar path, and we're all on our own paths. We all have different things going on in our lives. We're all aging, but how we're all aging is very different. And in this men's group that I've been in for 13 years, there's men who going through divorces, there's health issues, there's many things that are going on. And how we hold each other is probably the most important aspect of it. By holding, how we care for one another and let you struggle when you need to struggle and comfort when comfort is needed, right? There's a balance to it. I think that's one thing that I've learned is being a big caretaker of people, but sometimes that's a detriment to them and to me because we're on a journey and we're going to have to go through that journey, and maybe by my not rescuing, they get to go through their struggle and find light at the end of it, find strength at the end of it, and work themselves through it, as opposed to
advice and fix-it solutions and all these things. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
That being held and being witnessed in your own struggle is in itself an energizing and healing kind of scenario for many of us, right?
Yeah. And so if I think through all the experiences I've had in my life through my men's work, I can totally see and say it is one of the most important things in my life because I have learned so much through showing up once a month, every week, however often men's groups meet. I have benefited. I'm the beneficiary of so much. How to be there. If I think of the elder men in my life who have mentored me, and I was thinking back to just when my son was in high school, there was a man in my men's group. He was 75. My son was 15 years old, and he played baseball. And this elder showed up at almost every game that was played in Boulder late and left early. But my son knew, never hardly talked to him, but he knew that David was there.
Right.
And when David didn't show up, he would say, "Where was David?" And I'd say, "I don't know, probably working or whatever." And he's, "Oh, I missed him."
Yeah.
But somehow they had that, right? And so what that did for my son, wow. And what it did for David, both of them learned so much of it. So when I think about that experience, when I think about someone who in my group who a long time ago had a miscarriage and the grief that this man was going through in his home, and how we all just supported him and carried he and his wife through creating this whole ritual for them to grieve the loss of this unborn child, right? And to hold that is so beautiful, right? I can think of so many little scenarios of where life's lessons have been enhanced by creating ceremony for them. Yeah, I could just think of these young men who getting married, and all of a sudden a group of men coming together and really talking honestly about marriage, about becoming a father for the first time, and really creating ceremony. Yeah. And by ceremony, really ritualizing it, not just talking about it, but ritualizing. That's what can happen in a men's group. This might scare people because we're not used to doing ceremony anymore, but it's simple.
Yeah.
In my opinion, ceremonies are simple because they just acknowledge what's actually happening. It's like a rites of passage.
Yeah.
I did this rites of passage for this boy. He's 13 years old. He went out for the night into the wilderness by himself. And he came back. And when he came back, his grandfather was there. He didn't know his grandfather was coming. Right. And then his grandfather brought a knife, a little pocket knife that was his father's.
Wow.
Maybe his grandfather's.
Wow.
And he gave it to his grandson. So it's like that kind of ceremony, that being conscious enough to say, I want to show up for you in a very specific way, and doing that, right? Leaving home. These young people who are leaving home with senior in high school, and you're just ready to fly. I know what college I'm going to. I know what job I'm going to go to, whatever it might be. And all of a sudden, you're sitting down and you're talking about what's it like to really think about leaving home, and the joy and the fear of being out on your own, and what's the impact on the rest of the family, the siblings. It's like we're all excited because there's maturation happening, but there's also a new life beginning the day that person leaves home, right? It impacts everybody. The whole system changes. So ceremonies are really important.
Yeah.
And I know of some of the men who've lost their spouses, and it's a huge ceremony, right? It takes a long time to grieve and the loss, but to actually allow that to happen allows new life to come along, and the blessings of love, lessons of love, get to be felt in the heart.
Oh.
That's what happens in men's groups.
Wow, Keith. And I'm just feeling the beauty and the energy and truly the healing field of what you're discussing and describing. Ceremony, ritual, rites of passage. And as you were speaking, I was thinking about, well, what's left in our culture of that? Well, we celebrate Thanksgiving. We celebrate birthdays. We have Christmas, graduations. But there's, in my experience, a lack of depth when we do these things, and including in my own family. And as you're speaking, there's tears rolling down your cheeks.
Yeah.
As a testament to that depth, of the depth of the experience that these things can have, and using group work as a setting for these these rituals, ceremonies, and maybe we can call them the old ways, right? Because it harkens to the past of many ancient wisdom traditions who employed these things as a central tenet to how life should unfold and how we should hold one another in relationship. So do you feel a connection to old ways, to past traditions?
Absolutely. I think that once upon a time, there was a rites of passage to becoming a man.
Yeah.
We all become men anyway, but the rites of passage actually accelerates maturation of many different levels, that spiritual level. And so, yes, I really believe that following old traditions of what were the rites of passages that boys went through to become men. There was that sense of having to go get something. Once upon a time, it was like you had to go kill your meat and bring it back and feed the family, feed the village, right? That was a rites of passage, a marking. And before you did that, you had to learn how to participate in butchering the animal that when it was brought back to the village. There were all these things that you had to learn ahead of time. But that day that you went out to go find your own by yourself
in the woods at night
for however many days it took,
you
didn't come back, right? And so there's a way in which I feel like, how do we do that today? It's like I know I'm pretty good at protecting my kids. When my kids were younger, really protecting them. But how do we let them go out and follow that determination, that sense of being scared and also overcoming that,
yes.
Right? And so I think that's true in so many ways as midlife,
yes,
eldering, we're facing our mortality more and more, etc. How do we deal with that? And how do we ritualize that?
Yeah.
Right? How do we face it? And so I used to hear about when it was time for you to die, you just walked out through the snow into the mountains and left the village, right? I don't know how to do that, right? But from a more of what's the word I'm thinking of, a metaphorical sense, how do we do that? How do we really prepare ourselves
for these big life stages and events like marriage, right? Retirement.
When I think about what's
breeding
happening,
a baby in the home, things like this.
And when I think about right now, all these people who have lost their jobs, just the whole system starting to fall apart. And for people to become so uncomfortable and not know, where do they go? When there is a village, when there's a men's group, there's a place to go. To not feel alone, to not be hiding, and to not feel isolated. Right? And then you begin to ritualize, what do I need to do? Right? But you're not alone in that ritual. We're there to support each other. I really think we need to go back to our old ways of listening.
Yes.
Our old ways of not answering everything. Nowadays, if you don't send me an email and I don't respond in 2 minutes, like, what's wrong?
Right.
But the mail used to take days, right? So it would be a week before you'd get my answer. Sometimes we need to pause and feel the spaciousness. Be in nature. Take time to really be in nature. Watch the grass grow and thank God for nature. It is the biggest healing place that we have. And it could be your backyard, and it could also just be going for a walk and being by yourself without your phone, without anything, and letting yourself. That's what it was like once upon a time. And I think these days we're afraid to let our kids go play in the. Maybe it's okay. Go to the schoolyard and play. And don't call me. Leave your phone at home. And maybe we have to watch through the window or something, but just let children be children and let us experience what it's like to feel anxious around them leaving at all different levels of growth.
Beautiful. Yeah. Are there things, bringing it back to the more pragmatic, the container of the group work, are there things that you shouldn't do if you're part of this, or are there?
Yeah.
What would you say? Oh, you got a whole list of those too?
I do too.
Great. So
the don'ts, I think there's guidelines. that are really helpful. So the guidelines are about, let's say, listening. And so don't talk more than the time allowed, right? Don't judge. Speak from your own experience without judging somebody else, right? And don't avoid conflict. So
Yeah.
when you're in conflict with someone, you can name it. I see this differently.
Mm.
Oftentimes I'm suggesting in groups that when you start a meeting, look around the room and just look into each other's eyes. Am I clear with you? Am I good with you? Do I have any issues with you? Do I have any issues with this person that are going to keep me, issues that are going to keep me from showing up fully? Maybe, I think maybe you might have told your wife something from the last meeting or something, and all of a sudden I don't have the trust.
So that's not judging.
No.
That's being precise, like intellectually,
Yeah.
but also with your heart,
Yeah.
how it's landing for you. Unpack that a
So
little
I'm
bit.
just saying, like, maybe I'm beginning to question your confidentiality.
Okay.
So all of a sudden, I'm not going to bring 100% anymore because
see.
I'm not sure that you're holding true to our agreement.
I see.
So I'm saying, good to check it out.
Yeah.
Don't withhold.
Yeah.
Don't wait. Just say, hey, I'm just curious about
Mhm.
this. The whole methodology that I could teach, more nonviolent communication things around issues clearings between us. But when the field is clear, we can go anywhere.
Yeah.
But if it's not clear, we won't.
Yeah.
Right? Balance, structure, and flow. Right? I think that oftentimes facilitators sometimes want to map out every minute of a 2-hour, 3-hour session. And I'm saying, leave pause for the unknown to show up, for there to be flow. Maybe you need more support than, but if we feel it, then the time allowed. And if we can allow space, that helps.
Yeah.
Right.
So there is some structure, but it's also fluid and flexible.
Right. Train and support facilitation. So I believe that it's really great if everyone is a facilitator at different times and learn how to do that. Learn how to facilitate. So I think that there is some training that could go on. And I would say sometimes I've been in groups where some people, it just comes natural, and some people, it doesn't. And it's okay.
Yeah.
Right. And it might be more of a challenge to the person who's not a natural born facilitator to learn how to do that, but it's important.
Yeah.
And their struggle might be in learning how to do it. And the rest of the participants might have to be more patient, but it's good learning.
Yeah.
Right.
Patience is something to flex as well, for sure.
I think that at the end of a meeting of what worked and didn't work really allows the group, because at the end I can just say, Dave, I think you spoke too much. I didn't really get heard today because you were speaking so much. And I'm okay about it, but I'm leaving here a little feeling like I had more to say. Right?
This is part of the, talked about earlier, the loop closure at the end.
Yeah.
Tie it up.
Yeah.
You would voice that reflection.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I didn't do it in the group, I would come back to the facilitator offline.
Okay.
Right? Depends on what's happening in the group. Right. But to know what didn't work for you, because to be in a group that isn't really working for you isn't healthy either.
Yeah.
Right. And so over time, if you keep coming up with this didn't work and this didn't work, I didn't feel heard, I didn't feel seen, maybe this isn't the right place for you.
Yeah.
Right. So something like that. Yeah. That it's safe enough for truth, strong enough for emotion, sacred enough for silence.
Beautiful. Beautiful. What would be the optimal, again, from your perspective and experience, cadence?
Depends on, okay, so that opens a whole question of who are the constituents that make up the group. So I think what seems to be over a long arc, once a month, I think at different times, when you're starting out, every other week, it's hard to do every week. But if you can do it for 6 months, you get to know each other really well. You get to know where you're going, and then you end maybe with going on a retreat. Then maybe you go to every other week, right? Depends on the needs of the group and what brings people together. I've seen men's groups form around men who are businessmen, business guys, religion, and just anybody can be part of a men's group. So that also dictates how often, right? If it's new men versus guys who know each other already and they're just coming together, it's a different feel for, I think, for how long and what you're after. Right? In 30 years ago, we met every week, every Tuesday. It was the most important thing for me for years and years. And there was a 5-day ceremony that nobody ever missed.
Per year?
Per year in September. And it didn't really matter what else was happening. This is where we were going.
What is the sweet spot in terms of number?
Yeah. So I think somewhere around 9.
Okay.
And here again, it depends. Some groups say we won't meet unless everyone's there. And that becomes a real nightmare trying to reschedule when somebody can't be there, but they'd rather have everyone there. And I admire that. It takes a lot of discipline. But I think 9, if there's a couple guys missing, you have 7. It's enough feedback, etc. Feels good. If you're 7 and 2 people don't come, and then you're 5 in the very beginning, it makes it difficult. In our men's group right now, I think there's 10 of us, and I don't know, if we were 5, we would be fine. But we've been meeting for a long time. But I think if you're just starting out, you want everybody there as much as possible, right? So yeah, I hope
that's a great. I would just say that with Zoom, that makes it easy to pop the missing guy who's maybe out of town in. He wants to Zoom in and maintain.
We do that, and then sometimes we decide not to do that depending on the exercises that we're doing, or they're just checking in for the check-in, right? But the actual exercises that might happen afterwards, they're not part of.
Got it.
That just depends. And there are men's groups that just meet online.
Yeah.
I know an international men's group, and they meet twice a year in person, and they just are online the rest of the time.
A lot of different structures.
A lot of different modalities these days.
And what do you think for a group of 9 or a group of 6 or somewhere in that range, whether they're meeting monthly or bi-monthly?
Yeah.
Is it a 2-hour thing, a 3-hour thing, a 90-minute thing? What's the sweet spot there?
So, I didn't put another don't have food.
Okay. That's
be part of your group, of your thing. So if you're going to do food, do it either ahead of time or afterwards.
Okay.
And not everybody has to do it, right? So the purpose is to show up and commit to the meeting. As soon as food gets involved, it becomes
something else,
a distraction.
Yeah.
The food becomes a distraction. So like 3 hours allotment, and if you get done sooner, fine. But sometimes we're 2 hours now. But we're in my men's group, we're all in our 60s, 70s or whatever. And we meet at night, and we don't want to stay late. Right, we have driving, and there's all kinds of, but in my other men's group for 20 years, we met for 3 hours, and it seemed to be enough time. And in fact, we didn't really meet for 3 hours. We met at 6:30, and we stayed until we were done, which was oftentimes about 3 hours.
Got it.
But the commitment was to stay until it's done. Yeah.
Maybe as we're coming to a close in this conversation, I have a couple more questions, but the last one, or one of the last ones, is on knowing when you're done. Like, what's the voiced as well as maybe not obvious? What are the cues and signals that you guys are leaning into to know that you're wrapping? What does that feel like?
So when there's a facilitator, the facilitator has guided us through, let's say it could be an exercise, and then everybody has 2 minutes to speak, whatever, and then it comes to close to the end, and he'll say, "Does anybody have anything else to contribute? I think we're almost done. It's almost 8:30 or 12 o'clock, whatever time." And somebody might say, "Yeah, I'd like to make sure this happens next time."
Got it.
Or I can take this outside the group or something.
That's great.
Like that.
That's great. For someone who is thinking about doing this for the first time, and there's natural fear, like, what if I don't know what to say? Or what if I get there and my mind goes blank? Or I'm worried that my contributions won't be as valuable. What would you say to people with those
I would
fears?
say if you're interested and nervous
Yeah,
at the same time, you're alive.
you're ready.
And it requires some trust and not to, I don't think you have to expect, just because I said you're going to tell your truth as one of my guidelines, that it's going to happen on the first day. We're all going to wear masks until we feel comfortable enough to take them off. And that takes a little bit of time. So I feel like if you would like to have support, I know that Cloud is interested in maybe starting being a facility, providing men's groups to get started. I think that would be so incredible to have different groups starting that are connected to Cloud, even in terms of just health.
Yes.
And all these 4 pillars that you spoke about. I think that's tremendous. I think that's tremendous. And I can also see that through the Men's Council Project, which is the organization that I'm involved with, of tying in with Cloud and other men's groups around as well.
Yeah. Our vision is for sure, and I didn't really mention this, but I've been part of a men's group as well. And I'm one of those people that rates it at the top of the meaningful things in my life. And so what our vision is for all of our Cloud members is to extend this invitation to those that are interested, but to do it, as you say, with expertise and experienced facilitation so that they get the necessary background and grounding and initiation on the format and the technical aspects of it, so that should later down the line there be interest in launching their own, they have those skills developed. So we're definitely excited about that. And as we've said several times, to do so for women as well.
Yeah, and I can also just say, as around that, is every man's contribution creates the whole. And whether that be a man's boundaries of what he's willing to talk about or not talk about, etc., all that creates the group. And so I wouldn't be as nervous as much as excited to be able to bring myself to the group, right? And to have the support to be more of who I am and be seen. And I think and be seen for who I am. And when I think about men's groups, I think being seen and being witnessed and witnessing others is probably one of the most beautiful things that one can experience. And we spend our lives in so many ways, trying to either hide from being seen, or trying to be seen and not being seen.
Not succeeding.
Yeah. So to be in a place where you can be seen and heard and perhaps understood and loved and cared for and nurtured, and to be able to give your wisdom is very powerful.
So beautiful, Keith. Yeah, I am with you. I believe that we are all healers on a fundamental level, and that we also all carry our own medicine to heal ourselves. But that medicine that we carry can be catalyzed or turned on or activated by another person doing what you just said, witnessing us, actually seeing us. And so that other person who sees us can help turn on our own healing medicine, and we can do that for the other person. And we have lost any kind of general cultural rigor or tools or training around how to do that well. And I think men's groups they're certainly not the only place where this can be developed and cultivated and worked on, but they're a wonderful place to work on this idea of seeing one another. Any parting words, my friend?
Just a lot of deep gratitude for you and for what you're trying to create here really providing a place for men to call home. That's what I see. And that's what I'm trying to do this as well.
Yeah.
And I just am so grateful for what can be in the midst of the chaos that we're in right now, to have a calm place to be able to express myself, and makes me feel more sane in this crazy world, that we live in.
Beautiful.
So,
I'm with you, my friend. Well, thanks for sharing your wisdom and your expertise. And as we go around these 4 quadrants of reconnecting to our body and to our sense of self, and then deeply to one another in nature, I think group work has an absolutely fundamental part of the richness of our health journeys and our healing journeys. And I want to share that gratitude for you as well. I really appreciate who you are in the world, who you are in our community, as a beloved, wise elder yourself that's bringing just a lot of this, not just for the middle-aged and the elders of our tribe, so to speak, but really for the young people. I think that's where it's needed maybe more than anywhere else. And I just want to honor you for bringing back these rites of passage for young men in particular. I think it's so beautiful. And there's a huge blessing to have that in their life. So thank you again, Keith.
I just want to say that I'm so glad you touched on the youth, because they are the future. And it reminds me that many years ago, that our men's group, we became mentors for a high school.
Mm.
And we were inspired by an article that we read about these 3 homeless guys who didn't have jobs, et cetera, in Chicago, didn't know what to do. And they got together and they just stood outside the high school during PE time, or when the kids were out in the fields. And they just stood there and just hung out with these kids. And the school allowed them to do it. And they tracked the rate of
truancy and things like that.
All that. Truancy and worse.
Yeah.
And the school improved by 30% over 2 years by just having 3 men outside standing there. So we became mentors for a middle school in town here. We would play basketball, do homework, do all kinds of things for 2 hours once a week.
Wow.
And so it becomes very practical what a men's group can actually do for our youth as well. So I wanted to mention that there's a lot of needs right now.
A lot of needs.
Yeah. So thank you.
Beautiful. Well, thanks again, Keith.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Good to see you, my man.
You too.